Time for ASKRG, Galacticos. Time for ASKRG. I've chosen some good questions for this segment today. You know, if you haven't yet sent your own questions, send them at AskRG, #AskRG, and we'll see if they make the roster, make the cut, and we answer them. So let's go with the questions for today.
Great. So
before we start, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Tell your friends and family.
Tell your friends. Okay, let's start with this one. Oh, that's very loud. Okay, so let's start with as the Euro Cup's just finishing not that long ago. I don't know how long ago it was. What, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago? So, remembering the Euro Cup, do we think that Iceland will do the same that they did in the World Cup in 2 years? What do you think?
I don't think they will. Because number one, they have to make it to the World Cup. They haven't, the qualifiers haven't started yet. So let's see how they do in the process. Definitely, they've shown to be a, solid team with spirit. But maybe it's one of those teams that, with that spirit, that kind of surprise factor. They did what they had to do in the Euros, and maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe.
Because also it's true that this Iceland national team is the result of a very long process in Iceland that we were hearing about, been reading about. It's really interesting.
Really?
How they actually started building indoor football pitches because of the weather.
It's too cold.
So they made it more accessible for players to practice football and play football all year round. Mm-hmm. And then, this generation was the first generation of kids that benefited from that. So, maybe we have a strong team on our hands.
Maybe.
And maybe they'll win the next World Cup. But I don't know. I think it's...
We'll have to see if they qualify first. I think that's the first baby steps.
If they qualify, they have their followers, their fans, people who have fallen in love with them. But, making it to the quarterfinals of the World Cup, I wouldn't want to say no, but I don't know.
I have no idea.
But thank you for the question.
And that was Russell Herrera. Thank you for the question. Keeping with the same theme of Euro Cup, a question from Pedro Antonio Hernandez Martinez. What a name. Do we think that the Spanish national team will ever return to the glory that they were, be as good as they used to be?
I think, yeah. I think people are a bit overly too dramatic. Saying like,
too critical, no?
Or maybe
such a disaster.
What it used to be, like what it used to be 2 years ago. It's not like what it used to be last century. But yeah, I think maybe not again like Euro Cup, World Cup, Euro Cup, or World Cup. Kind of winning several big tournaments in a row. But I think the Spanish national team is what it is what it is now, and is what it. And they'll be competitive. I wouldn't be too dramatic about it. It's true they have had a tough couple of years, but man, I'm sure they will win again, and they will dominate Europe for maybe 1 or 2 years again, sometime in the future. I'm not saying 100 years, but maybe, in the next 4 or 5 years, we'll see dominating Spain again.
Yep. I don't think they're so far from being a European leader or a world leader in football. Like you said, I think it's a little bit too dramatic of a reaction. They didn't do well in the last World Cup, and they didn't do well in this last Euro Cup. But that's not to say that there isn't quality on that team, and they don't have a range of quality players. I think
a lot of the players that were in that Spain that used to be are in the team now.
Right, but also they had a really special combination with the players that they had at the time that they had it, and they achieved something that's really hard to achieve. Back-to-back Euro Cups with a World Cup in the middle of that. Maybe they won't ever achieve that again. Who really knows? That's an achievement
maybe nobody will ever achieve that. It hadn't been done before. But I don't know if your question is coming from a little bit of nostalgia, like, oh, will my country win again? I think Spain will win again.
I'm not worried about that. I think there isn't a lack of talent in Spain, and maybe it was also a need for a change of coach.
Yeah.
And if Del Bosque isn't the coach, maybe they'll bring in someone else that can sort of stir things up, that can take the team a different direction, can find the right combination of players. So I'm not worried about the Spanish national team. I think they've got wonderful youth players that are coming up through the ranks, and
Next question. Thank you very much.
Okay, so this is from Anthony D. Comedy.
Anthony D. Comedy.
D. Comedy. Okay. Do you think the treble is possible this upcoming season? So
I think it is. It's something Real Madrid have never done in history. It's important to say. Real Madrid have never won the league and the Champions League in the same year. Even though we have like 32 leagues and 11 Champions League, they have never happened in the same year. I think the treble is possible. It will depend definitely on how we design the squad. Because it's going to be, winning a treble means you're competing basically the whole year round,
Right.
2 games a week.
And I think a lot is rotation of players and having a squad not just of 11 or 12 of 16.
And of course, the luck factor, because you have to be lucky. Maybe not to win the league, that's about more consistent, but Champions League and Copa del Rey, it gets to certain points in games where, you didn't have luck and you lost. I mean, I'm under the impression that, a lot of teams didn't win anything this year because, among other things, luck.
Right.
Like Bayern Munich against Atletico, maybe Germany against France. Who knows, but is it possible? Definitely, yeah, possible, it is possible.
Possible it is. Difficult to achieve.
Of course.
Of course, and like you said, I think it really depends on, obviously, consistency throughout the entire season and then doing well in tournament style play. And you sort of have to design your squad for the long haul and also those really
the key
those
knockout
matches
games,
or knockout
life or
matches
death.
life or death. Anyways, cool question. Thank you for that question. Next question from Manit Meta. How did you guys start supporting Real Madrid?
I started supporting Real Madrid back in the day.
Back in the day.
Back in the day. No, to be honest with you, is when Ronaldo, not Cristiano, when the real Ronaldo, please stand up, signed for Real Madrid back in 2002. And after that, it was a few years after that I came here, and it was already done. But it was for Ronaldo. I started supporting Real Madrid because of Ronaldo.
Very good. Great player. One of my favorites. I started supporting Real Madrid, and I think I've told this story before. When I moved to Madrid some time ago, and I had a crush on this guy, and he was a big Real Madrid fan, and I used to always watch matches with him. And then they just found their way into my heart. He didn't, but the team did. Moving on.
I was going to ask you that, but that was brilliant.
Classic OG, original gangsta, or what was it? Own goal. How can Zidane incorporate Isco and James, if they're still here, into the team and get the best out of them and the team? So this is something we've sort of been talking about as well.
Yeah, and people like to talk about this. I think a key thing to incorporate them to the team, if we're going to keep the same players we have, is number one, making not only Isco and James, but making everybody understand that they might not start every game. So it's not a drama for Isco and James that they're not starters, and they're happy having a secondary role if they have to, and understanding that they will have primary or protagonist roles in some games, but that they are not going to be the kings of the team.
Right.
If Zidane manages to do that psychologically, I think we will be able to see the best version of Isco and James when they get to play.
Right.
That's number one on the emotional side. On the tactical side, well, it depends on the rivals, but I think we've seen in many games when we don't need that much muscle in the middle, and we can have Kroos, Modric, and James, or Kroos, Modric, and Isco, or Casemiro, Isco, and James if Modric and Kroos are resting, or any variation of a combination of those 5 players. But I think it's more on an emotional level,
agree.
psychological level.
I think so. I mean, I think the players need to feel important in their roles. I mean, and I know it's a hard thing. I mean, it's an obvious thing to say, like, there's only 11 players going to start. If you're not the starter, you're obviously going to have to come off the bench. But it's a hard pill to swallow when you feel like you are you should be in the starting 11.
Yeah.
And you're day in and day out training, and you're like, why am I not starting? You have a good match, and you think you do well, and you think you deserve that spot, and you don't get it. But I think if Zidane can find a way to make the players feel like they're important and their role, because I honestly believe this as a player, that coaches always say it, but it is really important that the players that start the match are just as important as the players that end the match, because it's a 90-minute match or 120 minutes or whatever it is. And so you have to believe that if you're
and
playing
this psychological factor, like when you're on the bench, like a lot of players, like because they didn't start the game, they come on and they're like, oh, I have this like trashy 10 minutes,
right? And I have
instead
a
of thinking
lesser
like,
role.
oh yeah, it's
and it's hard
I
to
could
buy
be
into
as
that.
important for the team in this 10 minutes.
But and I can understand how it's hard to buy into that as a player. I've sat the bench too, and I thought, God, this sucks. I've only got to play 10 minutes this match. But you really have to remember that it's a long season. If you want those titles, every player counts. At the end of the season, there's always injuries. There's always going to be a time where you need to, take advantage of that moment. So I think if Zidane can find, like you said, for me, it's more emotional, and we know these players can play, and we know that that they're going to be fine on the pitch. It's whether the mentality is there, I think. So
Yeah.
take notes, Zidane. That's what.
Thank you.
Thank you, Classic OG. Next question from Jorge Castillo. Why hasn't Real Madrid ever expressed interest in Griezmann?
I don't know. Number one, I don't know if that's true. I think
It's not true.
we might have shown some interest for Griezmann. Not in a press level like Real Madrid going for Griezmann. We might have in its moment. it might have been something more, how to say, more hidden.
Hidden interest.
Number 2, because Griezmann is in the
rival.
Let's say at the top of that wave of the world class strikers in the last year and a half, 2 years. It's not like Griezmann has been doing what he's doing in the last 5 years, and it's just like went like outside the radar.
Right, but actually, I went and looked it up. But Florentino has expressed interest in it, but also there's like some sort of in his contract, there's a clause saying that especially, I think it's to prevent something like this, Real Madrid taking him, but it's like €100 million fee you have to pay if Real Madrid were to want him, or to get him.
From Atleti?
From Atleti, it'd be €100 million. So that's sort of like a deterrent, but also that there's some sort of like unspoken agreement, unwritten agreement that like they're not going to poach each other.
If he's playing at Atleti, we're not going to get him.
Right. So he's happy at Atleti. I mean, there's other wonderful players like him that we could potentially sign. And, so Griezmann, that's why.
But thank you for the question. But yeah, there has been an interest. It's just like not going to happen.
It's just not a realistic interest, I guess. Anyways, moving on. This one from Mateo Beirinha. Do you think Pepe has a chance of getting into the Team of the Year after his performances this season?
Well, it depends on like what Team of the Year. The FIFA Team of the Year, some magazine Team of the
Let's
Year,
just say FIFA.
some channel.
FIFA.
Yeah, I think why not? He's been an integral part in the team that won the Champions League, club level. Mm-hmm. Integral part in the team that won the European Cup, national team level. So if you think about if you think about 2 center backs this year,
right?
Who else? With Pepe and somebody else, but why not Pepe? I think he will.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, last year, if we're looking at the FIFA Team of the Year, Ramos was voted one of the center backs. I think Piqué. So I mean, just solely based on what he's achieved this season in European Championships, I think, and then his performance that's gone.
And the performance, also the way he's played. Like he was the man
really,
of the match in the final of the Euro Cup.
He's been really great.
If that's not a merit enough to make it to the Team of the Year.
What more does our Pepe have to do?
And last question.
Last question. Let's talk about signings not in our team, but in Manchester United. The newly signed Ibrahimovic. So maybe the full-time Devils can let us know what they think about this. How do we think, this is from Brian Mancilla Alegria. How do we think that Ibrahimovic will do in Manchester this season?
I think he will do great.
Yes?
I love Ibra. He's one of my favorite players. I think he'll do great. He's getting older. That's true.
Yeah,
you
he's
can't hide that.
35 this year. So do you think age will be a factor?
Yeah, but in a player of his style, like with his characteristics, not being, because when you age, what does that mean? Like maybe you can't run that fast, but it doesn't mean that you're smarter.
True.
You're more skilled. And probably, you're maybe less powerful physically and less, slower, but that's it.
I think reaction time is a little bit slower. Your speed is probably definitely what takes a hit.
But for a box player like Ibra, his matador qualities are, I don't think they're any less than they were 2 or 3 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, maybe him and Mourinho could be a really...
That's the thing, they have a love story, a very nice love story with Mourinho, Mourinho, they love each other. I think Ibra will go to war for Mourinho, and I think that's what he's going to do in Manchester. So I think he'll have a great year. First year in England for Ibra.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. Tell us what you think, Adam McCullough.
Adam McCullough here, so we think he'll do great. Let us know, Galacticos, what you thought of the answers. Were they sufficient? I hadn't said this in a couple of months. I thought Ashley was tired of it. But anyway, keep sending your questions at ASKRG.
Please, yes.
And give us a like and subscribe, and we'll see you later.